a trophy.
Welcome to another episode of Midlife Krisis. Uncle Bob. Oh, I've got to break his concentration. He is watching Prayer of the Roller Boys right now, and he's very much focused on it. That's the leader of the gang. That's the leader of the Roller Boys right there, with his glorious coiffed mullet. So for people who are just tuning in, yes, I do have Prayer of the Roller Boys playing in the background of the entirety of these recordings.
This is our upgraded studio.
This is our upgraded studio, as you can see.
Clearly upgraded.
We've gone into full casual mode. I am showcasing the arcade collection there because it's a vulgar display of power, if nothing else. But yeah, so that's Prayer of the Roller Boys playing behind us the entire time. That's not going to stop. Eventually, this right here, Uncle Bob, is going to turn into Corey, Hey, Me, Myself, and I. Because I bootleg that. That's right. I bootleg that at the end.
You put the back
on the back end of this tape, I have Corey, Hey, Me, Myself, and I.
All right, so this is worth a little mini bird walk, which
Sure.
is that you had the commitment to take this movie from YouTube.
Also a necessity.
You could just watch it on YouTube, but that's not authentic enough.
What if
for
the
you.
internet goes down?
You decided to port it onto a VHS tape.
I down converted it to a VHS tape because that's the Hames preferred medium of visual exhibition.
Then as the B-side track, you have the Corey Haim documentary.
Me, Myself, and I.
Coming right after this. So
yes.
Just a barrel of laughs today, Brian.
I'll just say
it's just great content.
And if you want to look, I know that this screen is overwhelming from a real estate standpoint. So if you do want to watch this fine picture, it is on YouTube. Prayer of the Roller Boys, and also Corey, Hey, Me, Myself, and I is also on YouTube.
I'd like to think that the producer of this movie right now is watching our show, and it's just like, we
made
finally we're getting the exposure,
recognition. This movie kicks ass, by the way. I said it in the last episode. I'm gonna say it again. It's a real dream piece. The last part we were talking about how Microsoft on this current generation of Xboxes has kind of shit the bed with the Series X, Series S in terms of not a whole lot of games coming out, not a whole lot of excitement. It kind of feels like a bit of a flatline, plateau, whatever you want to call it there. But here's the deal, guy. Like, I feel like it's happening on the other side of the fence too. PlayStation right now. So as we record, we mentioned in the last episode there were some layoffs with Microsoft. There's been like a bloodbath of layoffs with PlayStation. Like I think 1,200 people total.
Something like that, yeah. Console woes is what's happening right now.
Yeah, big time. And so with PlayStation, like all these studios have been shuttered. As I understand it, Sony has a new like big boss out in Japan, and they have looked at the books, and there's a lot of performance issues with Sony that he's now kind of shoring up right now. Yeah,
they also have a new boss in just the Sony gaming division. That's Herman Hulst. I think is his name. And he came from Guerrilla Games, one of my favorite developers who make the Horizon games, and he was there for 20 years, and then he went to Sony, and now he is succeeding Jim Ryan. And I don't know if this is just Jim Ryan was pushed out, or if he was sort of had like Scotch tape over some of this stuff, and then now he's just walking away, and Hulst is coming in and just seeing all. But as of this moment, there's this transition of power going on, and then the moment that power change happens, all these layoffs happen. A studio was closed in London related to VR games. Just
I've got a lot to say about that whole VR thing.
Just a lot of negative stuff in general on the Sony side of it, which is the leading console side. So it's like they're winning. If you don't count the Switch, they're winning this generation. Certainly compared to Microsoft, they're seemingly doing well. Their games, their first-party games, God of War and Spider-Man, are selling really well, but it doesn't feel like they're doing well, and then thus the layoffs, and then thus a lot of the bad news that we're getting.
So I want to talk a little bit about the VR thing first, because buddy, does it steam my craw?
We predicted this.
Yeah, we kind of did. And so it's fruited. Sony releases the PSVR 2. It's a great headset. We both enjoy it.
Yep.
And they just didn't do anything with it. Like Sony, like obviously you can go on the store and there's like a bunch of like Quest ports and maybe one or two unique things. I mean, I can't speak enough great things about the 2 Resident Evil games that support it. Like honestly, some of the most like memorable video game experiences that I've ever had are in Resident Evil 8 and 4. I just loved that thing. It was so much fun. So like I feel like the potential of that thing is still not being tapped, and some of the high points of it show what it could be. But to find out that Sony has basically laid off like the only studio that was focused on VR,
they closed the studio.
It's gone. So that's basically saying like this platform, if you spent $550 or $600 on this thing, like have fun, but we're not supporting it anymore.
That over a year later, there's only been one first-party game for it. It was the launch title, Horizon.
Yeah, Horizon,
There isn't even another first-party game I'm aware of that's been announced.
Well, Gran Turismo 7 is obviously a Sony game. You kind of have to count that.
Do you?
You do because, well, here I count it because I think Gran Turismo is like boring and has always been boring and stuffy and not very fun. The second I tried it on VR, I had the time of my life. Like just full stop. I loved it. And and then I've gone back to try to play it in regular 2D, and nope, it's still the same old boring, not fun Gran Turismo. So VR really, really makes it something special. And it's Gran Turismo, so it's like super duper high quality, high production value. Yeah. I might actually stitch this in, but I have a video of my 78-year-old father playing Gran Turismo in VR. And he is having the time of his life.
I'm going to have our producer Chris Baer demand that you stitch that in.
That'll be a part of this for sure. But anyway, like so that's another one too. But yeah, it's not ground up like Horizon was. So so you're right there for sure. Yes. But anyway, when it comes to that stuff, I'm one of those marks. You're one of those marks. We bought that thing. They've in a recent announcement, they've said that like we're gonna let this open up to PC, which is like that's an admission of saying like we're done with this thing. Yeah, and it's a bummer because it reminds me a lot of the Vita. Vita is the only Sony platform that I never bought. I just never got around to buying it, and because then when I finally like was like, well, maybe I should check out that Vita. It's like it's already gone. Like it's already done.
And much like the Sony VR2, the Vita was a platform that everybody liked from a hardware perspective. Yeah. And then there just wasn't games for it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a bummer. We did an episode way at the beginnings of this deal. Almost a full year now, Uncle Bob. We've been going.
It's actually over a year ago. Yeah.
So there you go. And we were both so high on that thing, and now here we are. And it's, I mean, I still like mine with. I think with the 2 Resident Evils and with Gran Turismo, those are games, and there's a couple other ones too that are done by third parties.
Yeah. And I think you played through the Horizon game.
Yeah, I beat that game.
Yeah,
and it was cool. It's not as cool as the Resident Evils, but it's cool. Right. So I don't feel ripped off necessarily with it. But to say like again, going back to what I'm just very disappointed in you. I said that about Microsoft, and I'm saying it about Sony. I'm just very disappointed in you.
Should have been a lot more and a lot better, especially with that tech and with the resources that Sony has. So I've kind of lambasted Microsoft a lot for owning all these studios and not putting out any good games. So it's like, Sony, you own a bunch of studios too. So put some guys in a room and like make some good VR games. Clearly it can be done because Capcom did it twice with those Resident Evil games. You did it with Sony did it with one game.
I'm genuinely curious now about like if Capcom they put a lot of work into making there's 3 VR games that are Resident Evil 7 has not been ported to PSVR 2, but it was on the original PSVR. So like Capcom is like, in my opinion, they're like the #1 VR development house in the world in terms of like quality of experience. I've never played Half-Life Alyx, but from what I know about Half-Life Alyx, it very much is in that same sphere. Yeah. But I do wonder if Sony was maybe helping out with the financial end of that development. Oh. Because like, why would Capcom do that?
To put out a great game for a
platform that no one gives a shit about.
Minuscule install base,
so I don't know if you know this. I was just reading an article the other day about this, but so Sony produced 2 million PSVR 2s. So somewhere there's a warehouse with like 1.4 million PSVR 2s because they've only sold, I think, like I want to say it's like 500,000 total or something like that. And obviously, year over year, like the sales are. If there's no more software coming out, and there's not, or at least from first party, like it's going to be, less than the best year of sales is behind us now when it comes to PS4.
I think that's right.
So I don't know if Capcom's gonna, unless Sony gives them money to do it. If I am right in that speculation, I don't like they're not gonna. The next Resident Evil probably is gonna be in VR, which really bums me out, but. what are you gonna do?
So we've got the VR catastrophe. That's one way that Sony is failing. Another way is they just announced their financials, and they were reporting 6% profit margins on the PlayStation, which is really, really small.
Yeah.
By the way, their profit margins in the Sony PlayStation Plus, 50%.
Huh.
So you could expect them to put a whole bunch of money into PlayStation Plus and all of its offerings. And that's after, so about 6 months ago, Sony increased the price of PlayStation Plus by about 30%.
Yeah.
And and I know you do because you're also a subscriber, if you pay attention to the games that they've been giving you as a benefit of being a member, they've largely sucked in the last 6 months. They were not putting out anything nearly as good as what they were doing a year ago and especially 2 years ago. So there's also that sort of disappointment. But then sort of tied in with that, and I know you and I love it when we come together in an area, and this is one where we come together.
Mm-hmm.
Sony put so many chips into the live service games.
Yeah, let's go to town on this one.
Yeah, and boy, did they get busted out on that one.
I wonder if that's... Because I'm sure there's stuff that's out there publicly that people have been talking about, and then of course there's probably a whole slew of stuff that isn't public about what's going on behind closed doors when it comes to their books and finances. But you have to assume, like, just let's take The Last of Us multiplayer as an example.
Yep.
So that's canceled, and they staffed up huge, and now they're laid off. But they staffed up huge to work on that game.
Yep.
They took all these resources from what is arguably Sony's like best first party development house in Naughty Dog.
I think it is that, yeah.
And then there's nothing to show for it. And so
and we're now just about 4 years past The Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
So that's a huge gap to not have any revenue coming from that studio at all. Well, by the way, you're paying all those people to develop
not anymore, they're not.
Yeah, there's some of them.
Yeah. But so instead, they've done a couple Last of Us remasters that have come out.
Yeah.
Just to keep the name alive because the show is so popular.
And even one of those is controversial because it didn't work very well, the part one remake.
Right. So, anyway, that's the one that we know about. Like, we know about that what's happened with Naughty Dog and how it's basically stymied all of their development when they could have been making the next. No, I'm not even saying that they could have been doing something entirely new, which I really hope and wish they were. Because Uncharted's fine, but buddy, and I said this in the Xbox One, and it bears repeating in this one too, because I firmly believe it. I'm bored of that shit. I'm bored of Uncharted. I'm bored of Last of Us. I want Naughty Dog to do something new and different.
Allegedly, there's a new IP that they're working on right now, but who they haven't even announced it. Who knows?
So that's one of 6 live service games that Sony was wholly funding.
You said 6. I thought it was more than that.
I believe the number was 6.
Okay.
Who knows? If it's fucking more than
I really
6,
thought it was more than that. I thought it was almost in the double digits. Maybe
that would be buck-ass wild.
Whatever it was, it's been pared down now because of these failures. And that's why I go to the leadership issue.
Right.
Because it was the prior head, Jim Ryan, who authorized all of that.
Do you know about his newsletters, by the way, as a quick aside?
Oh, no.
So he's kind of infamous, if you'd rather, for he would do these employee update kind of newsletters that he would send out. And a lot of times the newsletters would be like, if you're ever traveling in Paris, check out this wonderful bistro on the corner of blah, blah, blah. And it's like you're talking to fucking rank and file employees.
You're QA testers.
Yeah, exactly. Like people who are working 20-hour nights.
If you're ever in Paris.
Yeah, it's really cool. So that dude,
after your VIP tour of the Louvre, just head on over.
Yeah, your privately curated tour of the Louvre. So he's in touch with things. He's pretty in touch with things. So, but yeah, going back to the live service stuff, and this is something I wanted to bring up with Xbox too. This covers both things, but you and I, we both have young kids that are also gamers. Like my son, like a lot of kids out there, is obsessed with Roblox, Minecraft too, but a lesser degree. The big ones was Roblox, and so now there's 2 whole generations of kids that's how they play their games is through Roblox.
Yeah.
And you don't get much more live service than Roblox as a platform. I know it's different than Fortnite, but I'll touch on that in a second. But here's my concern. So anecdotally for me, I've said I'm kind of bored with video games where they are now. Elden Ring ruled, and then that's kind of about it. There's been great games that have come out, but nothing astonishingly great, like stop me in my tracks kind of great. Okay. And that's, me, you are I think have that opinion slightly. But we're old dudes that have grown up with video games. Like when you talk about Uncharted, we know what that means. You talk about God of War, you know what that means. We can play that game all day, like, because we're old. Like, Street Fighter's like over 30 years old, all that good stuff. Our kids don't care about that shit. Like, they just don't. And so, like, if there's a problem with our age group with being interested in video games, and like, to me, my opinion is it does feel that way. It feels like there's like a waning interest of our peer group playing games, or being kind of disenfranchised, or maybe even like in my boat where they're just kind of bored with stuff. Who's gonna come up behind us and buy these things and play these things? Yeah. Because we grew up with Nintendo, NES, Super Nintendo, all that stuff. So like we both own Switch. We both buy Nintendo games still. I know your son cares about Nintendo more than mine. Mine kind of like really can't be bothered, kind of a thing.
Right now, my son cares only about Fortnite for
right.
the most part.
Okay,
yeah.
So, but like that's a genuine concern that I have. Is if we stop caring, who's gonna care?
Well, somebody please think about the children.
Exactly. Thank you. The adult man children that need to have their expensive looking video games. But that's a genuine concern of mine, is if we stop caring, like there isn't enough coming up behind us that are going to give a shit about this stuff. And so therefore the medium's going to die. You look at, and then that's, obviously hyperbole, but like, I don't know, like the video game market did completely crash in 1983. And like, it was predicted to never recover. Like, it was a fad at that time. So I'm not saying there's parity there, but like there's precedent for like a big giant thing to happen and kind of upend the way we consume stuff. And if you look at the television industry right now, which like that's career-wise, that was my background. I'm really, really fucking happy I don't work in television anymore. Yeah. Because like a lot of things are closing down. Like work is going away.
And movies as well.
Movies, same exact thing. So like industries change and evolve, and it's usually slow to roll, but like I kind of feel like that's happening a little bit with video games.
Okay. I got to sit up for this one. Here we go again. All right.
Okay. I'll change since you're a dude, I'm going to do it too. Right. I'm going to change my body.
Okay.
Change my body. Shout out to Logan Paul, by the way, for inspiring this wonderful layout of casual broness.
I will try to give this opinion quickly because it invites a very, very extensive discussion. I'll try to limit myself.
Here we go.
When you look at most mediums from the beginning of time until now, they start simple and then they get more complex. So the very first artistic medium was just like painting and drawing. But when you're talking about a 2D canvas, there's only so much you can do. You're limited by the layouts of the canvas. So once we'd figured out how to make things look realistic, which we did basically during the Renaissance, there wasn't really anywhere to go after that except to try to draw things that make people feel certain emotions. And then that kind of peaked, in my opinion, with Van Gogh. And then since then, it's been just weirder and weirder shit. Jackson Pollock, whatever. Okay. Then you get to music. Same deal. There's more. You have more options creatively when you're doing music than when you're doing painting. But at some point, you run out of different sounds that you can make, or different sounds that are pleasurable to the senses of the human brain. Movies, the same thing. Movies are a passive experience. You sit there and you watch the movie. There's only so many different ways that you can tell a story in a 2D space. Okay. Now we get to video games. Video games, you interact. That dynamic, the dynamic of you actually playing a role in the medium, invites so many different options. So we talked about VR. VR is like they still haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 years from now, we look at this the way that we look at like Pong when it comes to VR. But that in itself could be the next revolution. But even before then, the way that you interact with, the ability to interact with a game allows for a much broader creative space than what we had before. Based on that, I still think that video games have a long way to go, and they will have a long and healthy life as an entertainment medium. That being said, I do worry a little bit, but about the generation coming up, because we both have kids that are roughly the same age and we both see what we're playing, and then it's only natural to sort of transpose yourself into their shoes when you're their age and think like, oh man, when I was their age, this is what I was into and it was way different. And so I'm worried that they're not going to carry the torch.
Yes.
The legacy, the gaming
Very
legacy.
important. Yeah.
Yes, that they were born to do.
Right.
Because as firstborn sons, they
It's the job.
I know. That's the only reason you exist in this world.
Now pick up that player 2 controller. We're beating Final Fight.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
So, when I see my son obsessed with Fortnite, it's like, well, it's cool that you're gaming, bro, but there's a lot of other stuff out there. And then I think, like, it's like, okay, well, he's 8 years old, so maybe I shouldn't put all of this on him yet.
Well, I'll cut in just for a second here, and you can go back to it. My standpoint with like I think it's great that my kid loves Roblox. Like I genuinely do. I love the social aspects of it. He plays with all his friends at school.
It's creative.
I love the creative, and he's always playing Roblox Studio and creating his own stuff. So like I'm not shitting on my kid playing Roblox. I encourage it. I look at it in terms of, and I've probably brought this up on the show before. Like I'm a death metal drummer, right? Yeah. My dad's not a death metal drummer, but he allowed me to learn and practice and do that kind of shit in his house. So thanks, Dad. I really appreciate that.
But maybe your dad's disappointed you didn't follow into his footsteps. How about that?
He's not, because he's a good father.
Okay.
So.
Well, then maybe you won't be disappointed if your son doesn't follow in your footsteps.
I won't be at all. That's my point. My point is like that's his world, and like live in your world, and I encourage your world.
Okay.
The shitty part though is that like the industry that the parts of the video game industry that I like I can see kids in his peer group not care about it. And I don't think that's going to change. And if anything, I think it's going to get more and more.
So you'll be happy for him, but sad for yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So anyway, Sony, they suck right now, and they really need to fix it. Here's an example, and one of these, we're going to play this on the show, not this batch of recordings, because quite frankly, that's reserved for Corey Haim. But so there's a game that came out on the PS3 called Eye of Judgment. I don't know if you.
No.
Of course not. So Eye of Judgment was a collaborative thing. It was Sony. It was first party Sony, and it was Wizards of the Coast. And they made a collectible card game that is played with a camera. You would take these cards that you would buy just like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, and like they had little like a type of a QR code thing in there, and you would interact with. You could play the game online with people, which a friend of ours I did a lot with, and it was super fun, super innovative. It obviously wasn't a big hit because you don't know what it is, but like,
and it was by Wizards of the Coast, a
yeah,
company I know very well.
What it is, exactly. But like the fact is, like that's an example of them, Sony, like really trying something way out there, and like they went for it. Now, if it was a hit, we maybe still be talking about it.
Best example you could use, but
no. But my point is like do more of that. But they don't.
Yeah,
and
because it didn't work.
Sure, but do another thing
that could work.
That tries something that could work. Yeah. You look at like the big boom of the plastic instrument games, like your Guitar Heroes and your Rock Bands.
Yeah,
it's like a little sliver of time, but it was an innovative, really fun time that, like everything else in video games, it was beaten to death. Yeah. It was beaten about the head and face until it was a pile of pink dust.
The live service games of 15 years ago were that.
So which brings us back today to live service games.
Yeah.
So there was this gold rush with Fortnite. Everyone saw that like the earnings potential. I mean, for frickin' crying out loud, Fortnite is what made Epic have a game store.
Yeah.
Like they made billions of dollars off this thing. Today, Fortnite's still very, very popular. And it's like evolved from this like kind of a simple thing into like now there's like multiple, like Fortnite's like a platform like Roblox.
Yep. Well, that's what they're trying to do with it. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. So there's like games within games, like that kind of a thing. So, but outside of Fortnite, every single time someone has tried to make a live service game, it has not done well every single time. So why are they still fucking trying?
Well, I think they're not trying anymore. I think when we look back and we write the obituary of live service games, much like MMOs, when you had WoW be a success, and then you had a whole bunch of failures, and then one catastrophic failure, and then it was like, okay, well now we're not going to do MMOs anymore.
Right.
And the live service genre, I think what just happened recently with the Justice League game, or the Suicide Squad, Justice League, that is a live service game from one of the tippy-top best developers before that game had come out ever in Rocksteady Games, who made what we both agree is the best licensed game ever in Arkham Asylum.
Did Rocksteady make that Arkham Knights game? The one where it was
No,
like Robin and
they did not. I think that was Warner Brothers Montreal or something like that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So no. So their last game was almost 10 years ago. It was the Arkham Knight,
which was, I loved that game. That was great.
Yeah, which it still looks good.
Yeah.
At the time it came out, it had, stop me if you've heard this before, a whole bunch of technical problems. It had it delisted from the Steam store for a while.
Yeah.
I played it a couple of years after all those problems were fixed, and it was fantastic, and it looked good, and it still looks good.
Mm-hmm.
They are a great developer. We're a great developer. They put this trash out, and now nobody's playing it, and I don't know if it'll cost them the studio, but it certainly, if you're making a live service game, you're looking at that and you're going, whoa, we just can't do that. So
I don't think
now they'll move on to the next thing.
I think anyone who was in active development, big money development with a live service game, I don't think they are anymore. And I think they got out before Suicide Squad came out. And don't forget that Avengers game that Square Enix did in 2020. That was exactly what Suicide Squad was.
You're right. Yeah.
And it came out and it sucked. And people, but they supported that game for like a year and a half after.
Way longer than they should have.
And no one was playing it.
Fallout 76 is in that. There's a whole bunch of high profile disasters. And look, I'm fine with it because the history of video games is exactly what you said. Somebody does something innovative, everybody copies it. Remember, we're so annoyed at card battlers, Souls-like games. It's just like there's a thing, and it's like, oh, this is an interesting, and then everybody just pours into it.
Everyone Me Too's it.
And so it's fine. It's fine that it failed because now everybody will get over that, and then hopefully, if you're an optimist like me, you'll believe that there'll be some other innovative thing that somebody will do, and then everybody will jump onto that thing, and then the cycle continues.
But see, they're not doing it right now, and they haven't been.
Too impatient.
I'm not
have faith, Brian.
No,
yeah. It's coming.
Buddy, I wish your dreaming, I wish your believing and dreaming actually worked.
Robbie, when you gonna stop dreaming?
You gotta just shut this shit down, okay? Because you just end up getting hurt.
Don't have hope.
Yeah, just extinguish that flame. No, but I mean, like, the PS5 has been out for 4 years, and yes, you have to consider the damage that COVID did in terms of all of the shit. Like, I think we would probably be in somewhat of a different position if COVID never happened.
Definitely. Well, but it's 3.5 years, not 4. And the first 6 months to a year were stunted by COVID.
Yeah.
So it's not like a traditional life cycle yet.
Right, but it looks like that. I mentioned this on the Microsoft one. Like there is some chatter, some chitter about Sony releasing a PS5 Pro this year.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to play on it.
And they're not releasing a first-party game to go along with it, at least through March of next year.
Right.
So
that kind of tells me that, like, things are a little bit off the rails from from a strategic planning standpoint. Like, why would you go forward? And we don't know if obviously that nothing's announced. Whatever, these are just rumors.
We're not breaking news, people.
Yeah, certainly not. That's not our position.
We are good friends with Herman Hulst, and we know that he is an avid subscriber to our show.
Guy loves Jaguar, like me and like Robbie, as you saw. He loves Jaguar. That's what we're all bonded. We're all bonded with
right. But we can't disclose sources. We're not breaking news here.
No, we would never do that. We're honorable, diligent journalists. But I do think that, like, at least there should have something. Like, they could have done something. At least announced more. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, what they where they are now is not where I would have expected them to be with all of their stuff. Like, we only have the one Ratchet and Clank game. Like, there hasn't been an Uncharted game. Like, they're all double dips.
There hasn't been any Naughty Dog anything, which is the biggest gap in the resume.
And
we did get a Horizon game. We got that.
Right.
And you can't.
The Horizon games are more important to you than they are me. I'll just say that. Like, I am not. The aesthetic of them really doesn't do much for me. My very limited experience within that world, which was that VR game, like, made me actively dislike the universe. Like, I don't. It's like the old movie Virus with, I think, Jamie Lee Curtis, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, all the technology turns on humanity.
That's a you movie. That's not a me movie.
But it's a movie that came out like fucking 25 years ago. So, like, that's kind of the plot. That's kind of the plot of these games.
All right.
But they're big open world games that, like, I've played a lot of those. I don't know that you have played a lot of those. Like, you've played these games. You like the Horizon games a lot. And I'm not saying that they aren't, like, high quality products. I'm just saying, like, they don't interest me as much as they do you. And I God of War, the newer God of War games, like, admittedly I do want to play those, and, like, I've got no excuse there. I just haven't played them. But still, like, you look back at the whole history, like, there's no Twisted Metal games. Like, there's no the new Tekken game is I fucking love it so much, but it's Tekken's synonymous with PlayStation, but it's been multi-platform for years now. And it's third party. So it's like, but in terms of what Sony can offer, it just hasn't happened yet. And I think that because of the damage done with COVID and where things are today with them going N64 sticks on cartridge stupid with investing in all that live service game shit, like, they're really in a really bad spot now.
So when you're talking about Sony being in a bad spot, and maybe it's really the same answer, but is that because they're not putting out a number of games that you like, or a number of games that push the creative envelope in a way that you thought they would as part of the new generation?
Well, I do think that their creative plateauing started in the PlayStation 4.
Okay.
Like, Uncharted.
That's probably correct, too.
Yeah. I think Uncharted 4 is a good game, but wasn't that much better than Uncharted 3, which is like a PS3 game.
I actually like Uncharted 3 better. And it's a minority opinion, but I like 3 better.
And for me, and I think a lot of other people, Uncharted 2 is like the real high watermark for it.
Yeah.
And we go back into the archives. We did a wonderful little chit chat about the Uncharted series. But, like, the PS4, some of the complaints about it was that it was like an underpowered system from launch, and the Xbox One, for what it's worth, was also kind of considered a little underpowered. So from a hardware standpoint, maybe that stifled creativity. But, like, the PS4, they're still making games for the PS4. Third parties are, not Sony, obviously. But, like, so that PS4 came out in 2013. We're at 2024, still going. PS3 was a 10-year generation. PS2 was like a 12-year generation. Came out in 2000. I think the last PS2 game came out in 2012. PS5, at the point where it is now, feels like it's at the end, from like a quality output standpoint. Like, if we know that there's, for an entire year, there's not going to be a major game from Sony coming out on this thing, that's fucking nuts. And they've never been in this position for the entirety of PlayStation. And it's so, like, we are in kind of uncharted. See what I did there? We're kind of in some uncharted territory with them right now.
I'll try to. I'll try to play the devil's advocate here. I'm going to advance an argument that I'm not wholly committed to.
I love that.
How's that for a premise?
Let's get it going.
It could be the case that it looks worse than it is because of the singular failure of the Naughty Dog game, the live service game. Because had that game actually not sucked, it would be coming out this year probably, and it would fill that gap of not having any first-party games for a year. I'm very interested to see what happens after the 1 year. The expectation is, so Insomniac, if Naughty Dog is Sony's best studio, Insomniac is probably the most productive one, because they put out the Miles Morales game, they put out Ratchet and Clank, then they put out Spider-Man 2, and they have the Wolverine game heavily in development right now. So probably that will be the next game to come out maybe a year and a half from now. I'm talking about late 2025. Those guys over at Insomniac, the aptly named developer, must be, because they really know how to put product out. So you have that. Guerrilla Games is no doubt working on the third Horizon game, so that'll be another major first-party game. The Santa Monica studio, which did the God of War games, they just put out Ragnarok and a spectacular DLC for it, which was freaking free, and I still can't believe it. So they'll be working on something else, but I guess it'll be at least 3 or 4 years away.
Right.
Point is, if you had it, just pretend for a second that we had a Naughty Dog game coming out in 2024, then what you could say is, hey, 2023 was Spider-Man, 2022 was God of War Ragnarok. Going forward now, 2024 is going to be the Naughty Dog game, and then 2025 will be another Insomniac game or something else. It doesn't look as bad. So it might just be...
It's still... Dude, okay. It kind of does because... all right. So let's take the Spider-Man games.
Okay.
The Spider-Man games, they're fine. They're good.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying they're bad games.
Right.
But the combat was wholly lifted from the Arkham City or the Arkham Knight
the
games.
actual innovative
There's nothing
game.
Nothing really innovative about those games other than like they're very snazzy, like they're very next gen looking, so graphics are great.
But and the open world's really fun to zip around and be Spider-Man.
And the feel of mobility, all that stuff. But I mean, like Uncharted, like when Uncharted first came out, like the original one on PS3, like they took another game that was beloved in Tomb Raider and like amped it up from like the same bells and whistles things that I'm talking about. So like graphics, all that shit. But it was still kind of like a Tomb Raider game. So like the jump from saying, and Wolverine 2, and Wolverine's also like, it looks like it's going to be another Spider-Man game.
Yeah, it does.
So like again, where's the innovation here?
Oh, well, there isn't any.
Yes, that's right.
But you can have a good game that's not innovative. Spider-Man 2 is a good game.
But what I want is a good game that's also innovative.
Can't have that.
Yes, I can, because I could point out like hundreds of versions of, or hundreds of examples of those things throughout the history of video games.
No, we don't. Not anymore.
Oh, we're just done with it. Okay. Well, we'll never be done with Corey, who's always going to be there to protect us and look out for us.
You can look to the indie space, or you can get an Elden Ring every 3 years or so.
It's like every 10 years, but every 5 to 10 years to be considered.
Other than Elden Ring, what was the last AAA innovative game that you can think of off the top of your head? I honestly can't think of.
Something in terms that I haven't that I never really experienced before.
You would say Arkham Asylum, sure, but that's going back 15 years now, right?
Honestly, and we kind of just brought it up, but I would say I'm not even going to say the whole game, but I would say certain aspects of Death Stranding really kind of blew me away in terms of innovation. The main thing would have been the asymmetric online stuff.
Yeah. Where like you're contributing together to like flesh out this world. I thought that was really, really cool. And the way it's presented in that game, it in and of itself is kind of innovative. There's other games that have dabbled in like asymmetric stuff like that. Well, isn't that just an extension of what the Souls games were doing?
Yeah, but the Souls games kind of begin and stop with like giving each other messages. Like you don't really affect the world. And
sure, that's the next step. Is what Death Stranding was doing.
Yeah. Okay. No, I see where you're going with that. But yeah, I guess that's fair. So like if the concept of asymmetric gameplay is like what I'm trying to point out as the innovative thing, then it is less innovative because it kind of comes from the Souls games a little bit.
In the indie space, Slay the Spire was very innovative in terms of spurring the card battler genre. Yeah, particularly since it's a single player game.
Yeah,
that was really innovative. You could do a card battler just against computer opponents. I mean, even that is it's at least 10 years that game has been out now, if not longer. So if you just want to go 5 years, which is a long time in video games, that's a full development cycle even for AAA titles. There's Elden Ring, and there is at the AAA level not much else that I can think of.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's kind of, that's tough. And that's kind of that's why I think
I'm kind of to your point, right?
And it's kind of why I feel the way that I do about this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm fine because I've got other stuff, and the Spider-Man game, that was cool. And I do think I'm only maybe a third of the way through it, but this Alan Wake game that I'm playing is really, really well presented. I'm not ready to say it's a genre-defining, innovative game. And also, I hate horror games, so I can't even compare it to anything else.
I can't wait to do our horror games episode.
I'm just being terrorized by this game, and I'm literally cuddling up at night. The kids are asleep. I put the headphones on. And it's like, oh God, here we go. But I paid $60 for
torture
it.
Work.
I'm getting my money's worth of misery.
Right. Self-inflicted.
It's happening. Yeah. So maybe that. Maybe.
I would throw. We haven't really talked about Nintendo at all during this thing, and I think that's kind of for good reason. Number one, I'm a biased fanboy, but also too, like I just think in general they just are doing better work. But I mean overall, like I think like a Nintendo, where they're limited is obviously like the hardware. Switch looks fucking old. I'm not going to say that it doesn't.
Yeah,
but
but the Switch was innovative.
Yeah, and the Switch in and of itself as a device was innovative. But I was going to say game wise, Splatoon. And here, so Splatoon in its core is a multiplayer shooter, but here are the things that make it innovative. It is instead of like shooting each other, it's really about like shooting paint onto a space. So like it's more territory control.
That is genuinely innovative,
and the mobility of the game where you're like turning into the squid. So like you have like a super slow movement and a super fast movement, like bouncing in between being like the humanoid and versus the squid.
Yeah,
that's pretty innovative. And then the other one, and this is, feel free obviously to shoot this with a shotgun if you want to, but like I do genuinely feel this way.
I can't wait to hear this.
I think that the mechanical control of the game where you tilt and use the sticks, which I do agree that it's not for everyone, but most people who do play Splatoon, like that's how they play it, is by having like the motion control with the dual analog.
Yeah.
And I don't think a game does it better than Splatoon, and Splatoon does it in a way where like I can't play it any other way. Like I have to have that motion control in it, and to talk about a game with motion control glowingly in 2024 is kind of special. But I do genuinely think that's something that you only really find it on Splatoon, and Splatoon is like a relatively new thing.
Well, you only find it done well on Splatoon.
Yeah, that's what I mean to say.
Have it.
Yes, yeah, they're certainly like. Actually, I was just playing Doom 2016 on the Steam Deck, and by default, it has gyro control.
Oh,
and it's
Jesus.
awful. It is so bad. So turn that off real quick.
Yeah,
but I mean, like I do think Splatoon it's a triple threat of innovation there. But hey, Foam Stars just came out, so
again, something innovative comes out, and then everybody runs the copy.
Yeah, totally.
The territory control bit of Splatoon is super fun, and it is genuinely innovative. It makes the game a 1/3 strategy game, 1/3 2/3 shooter game.
Yeah, and the way like to be like successful in a team, like you do have to like have people dedicated to being like just territory, and other people like as like more of like an offensive front and stuff like that. So. It's I don't know, like Splatoon's really really good, but again it's on the Switch, and I do think that the Switch kind of exists outside of Xbox's and Sony's problems, because they're just not experiencing. They don't have those problems.
10 years ago, Nintendo just decided it's just going to do its own thing, and it has.
Oh, bro, that's like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The Wii was,
it is 20 years ago.
The Wii was just like, you know what? No, fuck it. We made toys for like 100 years.
Yeah.
So like we're gonna enable that part of our.
And
brand.
they're off cycle. They used to be on the same cycle as the other two console makers, and now they're off cycle.
They just do whatever they want. It's great. Yeah. It's really really, and we all win. We
all win.
we all win.
I hope we have 3 console makers for a really really long time, and I hope that they continue to innovate. But I am with you in the sense that. I don't know what this House Scion period of time was where you were getting games that are innovative like Elden Ring every 6 months, 3 months.
It was on the PS2 and the GameCube and the Xbox. That was that time.
I don't need any of that. I had one game during that time, and I only need my innovation once every 5 years. So I'm good with Elden Ring.
Yeah, and now you're playing Helldivers 2 nonstop. So it's the same thing all over again.
We'll talk about this separately, but that is the best multiplayer experience I have had since World of Warcraft. So go play Helldivers 2 if you're not playing.
So literally, you're doing it to yourself again.
And it's great. No regrets here.
That's fine. No one's asking for the regrets. All right, so I guess let's wrap up Sony talk. The problems that they're experiencing are similar to Microsoft, but a little bit different. I think that the PlayStation 5 was front-loaded in terms of like the best period.
Yeah.
I mean,
about that.
That launch, the Demon's Souls as a launch game was great. And then you have Returnal. Returnal.
My game of the year, 2021.
And Returnal is innovative in that They took a super old genre in a roguelike, and that roguelike's kind of like a card battler.
But, and bullet hell's kind of an old genre.
Yeah, that too. But like Returnal is a video game ass video game.
Totally.
And I would love more of that because
me too. Oh man, now I'm even more on your side.
Yeah.
Let's get more let's get more games like Returnal out there. That was fan-freaking-tastic.
Hey man,
that game.
poorly written stories suck. So you should probably make more Returnals. But yeah, I think with Sony, look, and I agree, none of this shit's going away. I don't think Xbox is. I think there's going to be more Xboxes. There's obviously going to be more PlayStations,
more games,
But I do think that this generation is like it's going to take a lot of doing to get out of whatever this weird funk is that we're in right now. I'm not saying that they can't do it. I am saying I want them to do it. But for right now, it just feels weird. Like it's across both platforms. It's just a weird time. And I do think that there is almost like a feeling of like this was a wash. Like this generation ended up being kind of a wash for both.
Yeah.
And it's going to be more about like how do both companies get out of this and onto the next thing?
I do think that this generation is going to be remembered a lot about like, oh man, and then COVID kind of messed up that generation and it never really got its sea legs underneath it. And then I will be the one on an island saying, I had the time of my life, and it was great, and I was happy with everything that was going on, so I'm fine.
It's because you got to experience two generations at once.
Yeah, I know. It's unique to me. It's a minority position. That's based on my circumstances.
Imagine if you could wrap your brain around playing nothing but 8 and 16-bit games that you never played before, and you could do this forever for the rest of your life.
I can't wrap my brain around that.
We'll fix it. Sooner or later we'll fix it. I'll find that gem. Okay. Any closing comments you have?
No, I think it'll be fun to do an episode a year from now, and to look at Sony's 2025 slate and see what's actually coming down the pipe. And I am very, very, just with bated breath, interested to see what the hell Naughty Dog has cooking up, because they canceled that one game. Are they working on Last of Us 3? There's rumors that they are. There's rumors that there's an original IP out there. But that is the jewel in the crown of Sony's studios. And so they really need to bring something out. And because by the time this game comes out, it'll be 6 years since The Last of Us 2 came out. I think everybody's going to be paying really close attention to that game to make sure that it's meeting the Naughty Dog standard of high quality. So if they can get that right, then Sony will be okay.
Okay. And for my 2 cents, just make weird shit. Just try making some weird shit, but like also make it fun and make it weird, make it different and innovative, and like have some new fucking ideas. Just try new things. Yeah, I get it. Eye Judgment wasn't like a super big hit, but try again. Please try again. And that goes to every company out there. All companies. All the companies with all of the money. Please try to do weird shit again, because like that's where you do stumble upon your franchises that you can milk for another fucking 15 years.
You remember that we did the Let's Play of, is it called Okama?
Odama, yes.
Odama.
Yeah.
Okay, you really did open my eyes a little bit on that one, because I had never heard of that game. It's just beyond the scope of my experience.
This is what video games can be, Robbie.
So here's the thing. This is like what was the old Henry Ford quote? Love to quote that sweet man.
Yeah. That sweet gentleman.
Nothing but a humanitarian he was. But he once said something like, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said they wanted a faster horse or whatever. So you have to like think out of the box. Okay, I don't really think out of the box. So when you're asking me or you're talking about like, hey, there should be more innovation in video games, I'm just here. It's like I meet people where they are. So it's like, just put something in front of me. If it's good, great. But I have trouble conceptualizing what it's easier for you to conceptualize, because you're just a more creative person in general. But when you put a game like Odama in front of me, it's like, oh yeah, I would have never in a million years been able to describe that as a video game.
Right.
And then you put it in front of me, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Let's get more of that.
Yes.
And then we've never seen more of that. And that game came out 20 years ago.
Yeah, about 20 years ago.
So I'm on board with more of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really, really hard for me to even think about what that would be or look like or anything else.
So then leave it to the creatives to be creative. Give them a bunch of cash infusion and stop being the shitty masterclass of executive overlord business dickheads, and like let artists and creative people be fucking that. That's it's a simple ask.
Well, if history is any barometer, Brian.
Yeah, this is how good business is done. All right. Well, these have been a couple plus-sized episodes, but it's a plus-sized topic. Yeah. Very special thanks to, of course, the one and only Corey Haim.
Our special guest.
Our special guest
Corey
of honor,
Haim
Corey. That will continue. That is a thread line that's going to go.
He's sweating now.
And when this tape stops, so help me, I'm going to rewind it. I'm going to rewind it. So thank you so much for watching, and tune in again on the next one.
All right.